What's up, Dolphin fans? I'm Travis Wingfield. We are here on the floor at the Indiana Convention Center for Scouting Combine 2023.
They've got good pieces in place.
It's like a
good football player. Mike is considered a real savant when it comes to the zone run game.
Fake.
He doesn't fake.
Yeah.
He goes to the left.
He's good for them as well, so Google him.
A few years ago, lots of draft capital, lots of cap space. They kind of are 3 years beyond that now. What's the next move for the Dolphins after all those draft picks, the trades, all the veteran acquisitions? What's next?
Well, they've got the big building blocks in place, so that's a good place to start, and they're in great shape there. I think now they just continue to fortify the trenches. I think continue to add more up front on the offensive side of the ball.
Let's go over to the defensive side of the football now and talk about that 2021 draft class. 18th pick in that year's draft, and Javon Holland, I believe, was 35th. Yeah. Two really big stalwarts on our defense. What do you think they can take from Vic Fangio's defense and take their game to the next level?
Yeah, Vic's going to put him in a situation to really make plays. It's an aggressive front that he plays, and it's going to allow for the ball to come out even quicker. And I think you're going to see Holland, to me, is already one of the best safeties in the league. And now I think with Vic, you'll see him really go to the next level. You just look at Denver and the defenses he had there and the safety play that he had. If I was Javon Holland specifically, this would have been the guy you wanted to see show up. It was Vic Fangio.
The safety production he's had has been crazy over the years.
Unbelievable.
Let's go ahead and finish on the offense side of the ball with that same draft class. Jalen Waddle, I know you were a huge fan. Freaky fast. I actually quoted you in a couple articles talking about that, and we love watching him do his thing, but it's more than the speed for Waddle.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about his game besides the speed that makes him a 1,400-yard receiver?
Well, he can gear down. You know, a lot of times you get straight line fast guys, and then they're sticky. They can't get in and out of breaks. He has that rare ability to be at a high rate of speed and to be able to gear down, get in and out efficiently. So that's what makes him such a nightmare to deal with. And then, you know, what he does after the catch, you know, there's some guys they're speed guys, over the top guys, but they don't give you much after the catch. He's special with the ball in his hands. So he's a complete receiver. He's not 6'4", but he is a complete receiver.
One thing McDaniel mentioned at his press conference yesterday he had here was talking about year two in the offense and how rather than studying someone else's players in your offense, you know, going back last year for them and watching the Niners offense, now they have an offseason where they can watch themselves practice and make those corrections. How do you think that has a positive impact on the offense? Just heading into year two.
I think it's big because you can watch it now with a different perspective. During the season, you're very, very focused on opponents. And even though you're still aware of your players, clearly, because you grade your players, that's the first thing they do. Is, you know, usually if it's a home game, the night of the game, you know, after the game, most people don't know this, the coaches go back and they watch that game, and they're grading their players, and then they get into the other team. But now you can do it with a little different perspective. You know, every team self-scouts at the end of the year. So now they can see their players in the context of what they want to do. And that gives them a much better feel for specific individuals than watching it in a different offense and saying, oh, well, can this guy fit in my offense? Now they know one way or the other.
It's really cool to see different guys have an opportunity to just get their names out there, and that's kind of what we love to have you on the podcast for every year. You're my go-to guy. UDFA class, get Emory on the podcast. And last year, again, he talked about Braylon Sanders and Kader Kohou, two guys that he was a big fan of. Kohou had a heck of a season last year. Sanders got a couple of games of experience as well, and he'll be back in the mix again this year. But I want to talk about Kader Kohou. Just give me your take on him now that you had a full year of NFL tape. You were big on him coming out of Commerce, but pretty good for the Dolphins last year too.
Yeah, it shows you that no matter where you play, if you have the talent will supersede your level of competition. And he got out there, played really well, and got better as the season went on. And that tells you about the guy's athletic ability and his ability to adapt. And it shows you that no matter if you take a guy from, at the time it was a Division II program, but now they moved up to the FCS, so they're FCS D1. But when you take a guy from a smaller school, a lot of times all they need is that opportunity to play. Because I remember coming from high school, going to college, it was, okay, I was running high school speed. Then about after a week of practice, you get used to college speed. So a lot of times for these guys coming from a smaller program, you put them around other elite athletes, you have no choice but to raise your level of play. And once that happens, then the true talent gets to show out and really foster itself. And that's what we saw from Kohou, to where teams were challenging him, throwing at him. He kept answering the call. Then they stopped for a little bit and found somewhere else to go with the ball.
Who's a guy this year that you could see maybe falling to the back end of the draft, maybe all the way out of the draft again, but you like his game a lot and you're going to put your stamp on it and say that guy can play at the next level?
Well, there's two guys, and I'm going to go back to the well again at Commerce. Celestine Haba, edge rusher, was phenomenal at the Tropical Bowl. Every time it was a team drill, whether it's 9-on-7 or 7-on-7 or somewhere we had to get pressure that wasn't one-on-one, he was getting pressure. And so that's someone that really stood out in those type of events. Also at corner, from the HBCU Legacy Bowl, but also from the NFLPA game, Keenan Isaac out of Alabama State. 6'2", 188 pounds. He's a long corner, type of length that he could scratch his knees while just standing up right there. That's how long his arms are. But he could press. He has great ball skills, ball awareness, ball instincts. He's coming off back-to-back all-star game performances where he performed really well. And there was a young receiver out there in Xavier Smith from FAMU who was lightning quick in all directions. He was someone that really tied up his abilities at the line of scrimmage with his length and his press and taking the ball away. So very impressed with Keenan Isaac. He should have been here, but since he's not, he's someone I think is going to fall later in the draft, and someone's going to get themselves a true gem.
Talk about the tight ends. Let's focus on that position. Is there anybody that you think really kind of can play all three phases from day one? Because I know for the tight end position, it's tough to learn because run blocking, pass pro, pass routes, it's a lot to learn, right?
Yeah.
Is there a player that you think can come in right away in this year's class and just make an immediate impact to that position?
Well, there's three that I like for the Dolphins, and the first one is Darnell Washington from
I love
Georgia.
this game so much.
Yeah, with the outside zone scheme that they like to run. He's an extra offensive tackle when he's on the field, and then he's also an underrated pass catcher too. And I know Brock Bowers is the player that a lot of people glorify with Georgia, and rightfully so. He's a great player. But Darnell Washington made that offense go at the tight end position from a run game perspective. So he's one that I would keep an eye on. Luke Musgrave from Oregon State, who was a bit banged up last year. I think he's one. And then the last one is Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. He's another one that was a little bit hurt last year, but he's very versatile as far as a blocker and a pass catcher.
And who do you like as an off-ball linebacker for this defense?
Yeah, this is a really interesting class just because we don't have that bona fide number one guy at the top. There's no Roquan Smith. There's no guys like that. But Dayan Henley from Washington State, he's one that I like a lot. Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati, he's kind of a chess piece on that second level that you can move around a lot. And then also Jack Campbell from Iowa, he's one that I like a lot too.
I've heard this, and this is something you see on Twitter, like, oh, Vic Fangio is going to make it better for the Dolphins offense to practice against him. And that makes sense. Tell us why, though. Give us the explanation behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Fangio is going to be able to throw a lot of different things at you. Again, like going back to his pedigree and how long he's been around in the league, he has figured out what works and what doesn't. And I think that Fangio is one of those defensive coordinators who understands timings of things, understands when to be aggressive, and is able to do that in advantageous situations. And so I really do. I think that it's a great chess game. The iron sharpens iron quote that everybody talks about, that becomes very real when you get a offensive innovator like Mike McDaniel, who is always trying to push the envelope, always trying to do things different. And I do feel like there are going to be times when Mike McDaniel maybe tries something and Fangio like already has an answer for it. And then like maybe from that, it's like, oh, okay, well, if I actually tweak this little thing, then there's not really a counter for it. And so just that back and forth is going to be, I think, really fun for him. Two really smart guys.
Oh, looking forward to seeing that. It kind of reminds me of like the Water Boy when he's like on the board drawing up the play. Like, no, he fakes the fake.
He doesn't fake. He goes to the left.
This is McDaniel just drawing up plays all night long, trying to figure out how to beat Vic Fangio's defense. We were talking on the walk over here. It's been a long time since the Dolphins had a top 10 offense. This year, number 6 overall. Yeah. Just give us the bird's eye view on how that offense was created, and we'll talk about Tyreek and Jalen in a second.
Yeah.
But just like kind of from a scheme standpoint, how it was put together.
McDaniel is the preeminent offensive mind right now in the league in terms of ingenuity, in terms of creativity, in terms of cutting edge, right? Like Andy Reid, like Sean McVay, the guys are still like more foundational. But in terms of right now, like guy doing cool new things who other people are going to copy and follow, like McDaniel's one of one. That ability to get to such a similar bucket, right? Think about a shooter getting to the elbow in a variety of ways against a variety of coverages. Just get to one spot and get to it to that one spot. That's the hallmark of just a really, really, really good offensive mind. Like that's a guy who just fully gets it. Now comes part 2. Everybody's seen it, right? And now it becomes, okay, you have to have new plays. You have to have new stuff that you go for. You have to have new ways to stretch the defense. If you're going to be a cutting edge guy, you don't get to sleep very much. You have to stay a step ahead, right? And so that'll be the interesting thing to see is how this thing continues to evolve. But the dawn of McDaniel was unbelievable.
The dawn of McDaniel.
It was foundation. I was thinking like run the football and zone, whatever. They're pulling guards, you know what I'm saying? They're spreading it out like they're shotgun, they're RPO. This was a guy who's been waiting for a long time to take over his offense, taking over and absolutely killing it. Now I got to stay ahead.